Okay. Does anyone have any questions? Yes.
I know we're making the assumption that there's going to be a lot of renters in the population.
Mhm.
But what about the situation where more and more people end up wanting to buy properties, right? So
Mhm.
maybe the rental population might take a dip as well, right?
No, if there's more people wanting to buy, it's always about demand and supply, right? So if more people wanting the property value would go up. If the property value goes up, the rent would actually catch up to it, right? So, and also I think that's our wishful thinking that more and more people would want to, but whether it's actually could happen, it is a theory. Is that, I graduated in '92. So my husband and I combined, I think, made about $70,000 at the time, and our first house was 180,000 in Oakville, by Mattamy, 36 by 80. That house is about asking 1 million today, right? But the university graduate, they'll be lucky to make 100,000 today combined, right? I don't know they could afford $1 million house. So the wishful thinking is that everybody likes to own, but less and less people are able to own. So I kind of have to disagree with that.
There's also a shortage of rental properties.
Oh,
So if
absolutely.
more people buy, there'll be less to rent. So our rental properties will rent quicker at a higher price.
That's true too.
So that's good.
Actually, I have my daughter here. She's 17, but I think when she was in grade 8, we live in a nice neighborhood in Oakville, and I was sincerely said that because I was looking for a townhouse for my brother-in-law, and I didn't realize how much the price has gone up at that point. It was just sick to my stomach, right? And then I said to my daughter, I said, you know what? It's so sad that even though we live pretty affluent area, like half of your kids, your friends, won't be able to buy home by the time you're ready for home, like getting married and all that stuff. And I actually said it sincerely, and I believe that's going to be the case. And she goes to me, wow, you're in a great market because you're going to get more renters. And you know what? I actually didn't think about that at that time. I was more concerned about them not being able to get it. But she just reminded me, wow, she's right there. So she said to me, because you're going to get more renters, right? So then I thought to myself, you know what? But at that time, should I be angry at her or laugh at her? Because I was trying to be very serious about that, right? So, but reality is that what I'm saying is that compared to 10 or 20 years ago, I think it's more difficult to save today than back then, right? So, yes.
Let's say you have a one tower
Yeah.
with 300 people, 300 units. So when the time of finishing comes,
Yes.
it means you're competing with 300 units.
Yes. So very first year, your rent is not that great, and I have to be honest. And it may take a little bit of time. So I think our Carnaby, the longest one took about close to 2 months. 2 months a vacancy, because we had about in 20 Glass, so we got around 40 units at the same time, and it was January, which is the worst month of the year too. Well, December and January, right? So I think that we managed to get rid of everything, but the longest vacancy was 2 months, and some got lucky and you just rented a few days, right? But the rental rate wasn't as strong, right? So we're getting a little bit of hit from that building because we've increased the rent. The most increase we made was $500.
Yeah.
So we were getting $1,900 first year. And then we had to go to the market for $2,400. We actually asked for $2,400. They're so silly not to negotiate. It's like they said, yeah, we'll pay $2,400. So there's like $500 increase. We're not bound by the rent control, by the way. So yeah.
Not all the people in the building are renting.
Pardon?
No.
Not all the people.
Not all of them, but you know what? I
Not
have to.
competing with the whole building.
No, but it doesn't. But you know what? What happened was that they were using a Facebook to like get across. And I have to say the Carnaby, I'm estimating about 70% of the unit. Oh yeah, and downtown is getting closer to 80%. Yeah, I have to say, especially the pre-construction. Because think about it, how many of you actually plan to live somewhere 4 or 5 years later and buy? Very few, right? So majority of them is actually end up being more of a rental purpose, right? And then of course they would sell right away, like after closing to the end user, right? In that case, but in terms of initial purchase, I have to say majority of them are investment
Okay,
purpose.
okay.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah, I think I might have a practical question. Is
Yeah.
you told me that you told us that all the rental income could cover all expenses. That's the most important point.
Yes.
But rental income is only counted as half of active income by the mortgage lender, which is
Yeah,
the
that's a
bank.
two different
So
issue.
how could we
Yeah.
kind of solve these? Liquidity differences, which is in between the cash flow,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
that is counted by them because you have a $2,000 rental income,
Mm-hmm.
it just counted as $1,000 active income.
Yeah.
And so how could that become
Yeah, so
kind of-
you have to, you're talking about
Okay.
two different things. One thing is that what I'm talking about is actually covering the cost.
Yeah.
Is that you're actually getting $2,000 and working with $2,000, right?
Right.
So what you're getting at is a mortgage type
because you need to
rules.
get the mortgage.
Yes, that's right. So when it comes to the mortgage, I guarantee you that there's a mortgage for everyone, but everyone has a different qualification, so your rate will be very different. Okay,
Depends on the down payment.
yeah, and that's the critical part that most people get angry at is that, well, I'm sorry to use my sister as an example, but my sister's daughter is working, so she got a rate of 2.35. Okay, so it's going along. Her daughter's bond, and she got 4.25 from Home Trust, and she had to pay 1% lender fee because she actually had a business but reported a negative income couple years. So obviously that had an impact, right? So she ended up getting a higher mortgage. But what I'm saying is that you're right, depending on what income you report. So for example, if you're reporting like $80,000 and then your wife is reporting $40,000, it doesn't matter if 50% or what, you'll get an 80% mortgage, I guarantee you, at 2 point whatever. But if you're a self-employed and showing $20,000 a year, it's not the rental income is the problem. It's your personal income will make it difficult. So you have to go to the B lender. You end up borrowing 75% instead of 80% at a higher rate.
Right.
Right? So that's completely different. Is that
Yeah.
what I'm concerned is that with the revenue that I could generate to cover the cost. But of course, if you pay higher interest, then your profit will shrink. Because you're putting more money into the thing. So what I said to my sister is that first question I ask is that, okay, is your rent covering the cost, right? And she said yes. Then don't complain, right? Complain when it doesn't cover, right?
Yeah.
But if she said, actually, I have a $200 left over, and then on top of it, Jenny's using the parking, so I could have got another $150 for the parking. I said, then why are you complaining?
Yeah.
Right? So I say, complain to me when you have a negative cash flow and you can't sustain it, then we have a problem, then we have to look at different avenues, right? But when it covers, that's your situation. I can't change your situation, right? So I said, then you have to report more income. So I said, it goes hand in hand. You pay more tax, then you get a better rate, right? If you don't pay tax, then you have to pay a higher rate. I think it's fair, right? So that is a completely difference. That it's not so much the rental income will dictate, but it's your personal income will dictate the rate and whether it's going to be A
So
lender or
in
B
the
lender.
end,
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
power to be able to get a mortgage is very important for the overall picture.
That's right. So we had 160 units at Carnaby. I have to tell you that they weren't all easy, okay? Because we have a lot of seniors that doesn't have income.
Yeah.
We have a lot of
That is
business
the point
owners.
we have to bear in mind.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, but you know what? We close every single unit, okay? And can I tell you your story?
Sure.
Okay, don't be, okay, so,
Sure, you can tell my story. Go
okay, so
ahead.
one of the clients, say that we're closing is tomorrow, okay, so we're all ready to go. At 11 today in the morning, she got declined.
Yeah.
The mortgage company said, we can't give it to you for whatever the reason, we can't give, and then I happened to be in the office, she goes, oh my God.
We always call Patty when there's a problem.
Yeah, so I had to pay a mortgage, right? So I don't know why people are panicking. Okay, calm down. Okay, so we got her a private mortgage. Okay, private rate is 7.25 with the lender fees and arm and a leg or whatever. So we closed the deal. Okay, she bought it for $350. You close the deal, right? And then I don't know, a couple months later, you went back to Scotia,
Yeah.
and you got how much mortgage?
We financed it.
We financed it.
$492.
How how can you get 490? No, 412.
412.
412.
No.
Yeah, because it.
415.
She doesn't
well,
remember, it was
450.
400
So
something.
what happened was that as soon as you close,
Yeah.
you could actually go to the market value now.
Yeah.
Because when you close, they only recognize whichever is lower. So she closed, okay? And then she went back to the Scotia when we had more time. I think the price came out like 540 or 550,
Mhm.
okay?
Yeah.
So they gave her 80%, works out to be 412, I think. 412,000 mortgage, and she bought it for 350, okay?
Yeah.
And her rent is fairly high to cover. But this is where I got really upset. So after everything is done, she got the mortgage for, like 415. She started complaining about the charge that she got for a private lender. It cost her like $78,000, and she was like pretty upset. I'm like, Nina, like, what the hell?
Yeah.
You-
7,000 compared
yeah,
to.
like compared to the money that you got out, you bought it for 350. You got 415,000 out. The rent is covering it. Like you could go and buy another one. But she's so upset about that 7,000, whatever that happened. But things happen.
You
That's
closed on
why.
the deal, though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
you
closed.
close it.
And now
That's
that's the cost of doing
that's
business.
that's what
That's-
I'm trying to tell you. So as you're working on many deals,
Mhm.
oh my God, so many things could happen. So the mortgage being canceled day before, it's a very
Very-
not all the time, but you know what, 1 or 2% it can happen. You can't do anything about it, right? We'll help you to close so that we don't lose the unit. And then when we have more time, we reassess what needs to be done and get it done. So in a way, if I were you, I would be happy. I'm happy.
No, she was happy. She was happy. She was
Because
happy
you
at
got
the
more
end, at
money
the
out,
beginning when
right?
you were there.
Because you got more money out. For me,
Yeah.
the whole thing is that I'd rather have access to money, go to another one.
Yeah.
And you did buy another one, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's the point that I'm trying to make is that there is a mortgage for everybody, but the rate could be very different. But as long as you don't demand us that, well, I want a lender with a 2.35, and meanwhile you have a zero income, we can't help you. Okay, but we will help you to get the appropriate mortgage that is at your level, and you just have to accept it.